Dear colleagues, dear teachers of English, good afternoon and welcome to our English seminar for today. This is an English session, dear. We are going to talk about English language skills. So please, if you have any question, please don't hesitate and call and ask. Well, dear, I would like to tell you that we will have regular meetings between us in order to speak about the English skills, okay? So to start, you know that to teach the skills, it's an important task. We have to know that we have the 4 skills. You know that we have the listening, the reading, the writing, and the speaking. So today I'm going to start with the teaching speaking skill. You know, dear, that all the skills are integrated and we cannot teach one skill and neglect the other. If you want to teach the students from grade 1 or from the KG to the 12th grades, we are going to teach them all the skills, even if we are dealing with the grammar. For example, if you want to start a lesson, you know that if the lesson is the reading lesson, the grammar or everything, you have to speak with your students, right? With the pupil in the classrooms. So the first thing you do that you speak. You may memorize, so we have the speaking. But how to teach? Now, let them speak and teach them how to speak. There is a strategy, or there are strategies for this thing. So teaching speaking skill is our session for today. If you have anything related to this topic, later on, please call. Later on, we will talk about the other skills. Later on, we will talk about the listening skill, the writing skill, and the reading skill. All the skills are important, okay? But today we will talk about the speaking one. So you are welcome. If you have any question, don't hesitate. I'm going to talk about this skill, and please call. Now to talk about the teaching skills, the speaking skill. Why do we teach speaking? There are reasons for this, right? Why do we teach speaking? So we have many things to talk about. We talk about the students' need. You know, speaking, our students need to speak. They need to communicate. It's very important to communicate. So they speak English. In order to speak English, there are certain rules. So first of all, why we teach speaking? We have the students' needs. They have needs in order to speak English. And we have something that if they want to start a job, a globalized job market, if they want to interact with other people in the world, you know that English language is very important in order to communicate with others inside your country or in the world, because English, you know that the internet has connected people together and make all the world a small village. If you want to interact, if you want to make a job, you know, you need English. So we need to speak. We need to speak to others and listen to them in order to have the job. We have internationalized studies. If a student wants to study abroad, or if he wants to study in his country, right? He needs English because he needs references. He needs to search for books. He needs to search for reference, not only in his own country, but in other countries. He needs to benefit from all the knowledge around the world. So that's why he needs to speak. He needs to learn this skill in order to communicate, in order to know. And we need the students, we have survival skills, right? So why we teach? We have a cross-cultural communication. More and more, in China, for example. So what can we offer them? If we move on talking about this skill, so what is speaking? So what's speaking? To know, for teachers, for us as teachers, to know how to teach this skill, we know what's speaking. So to talk about it, speaking is a process. It's a process of building and sharing meaning through the use of verbal and non-verbal symbols in a variety of contexts, as Cheney in 1998 said. This is taken from page 13. So speaking is the process of building and sharing meaning through the use of verbal and non-verbal symbols in a variety of contexts. So Speaking also is an interactive process of constructing meaning that involves producing and receiving and processing information. So we have it's a process of constructing. It involves producing, you speak, you produce, right? And you receive when you listen. It's related to this, that's what's speaking. So what's teaching speaking? As I talked about speaking, what's teaching speaking? Then I will move on to talk about how to teach speaking. What's teaching speaking? It's produce the English speech sounds and sound patterns. It's very important to recognize and to realize the differences between sounds, producing sounds in English. That's why it's very important to teach pronunciation in our books, and that's why it's very important to have them speak and say these sounds and the sound patterns. Teaching speaking also involves the use of word and sentence stress. The use of word, this is right intonation and rhythm. The intonation and rhythm is very important, and you know, dear teachers, how important it is to teach intonation. Now, to select appropriate words and sentences according to the audience, situation and subject matter. You know, dear teacher, that when dealing with your students, sometimes you find yourself changing your technique, change your attitude toward the audience. Sometimes in this classroom I may use this strategy while I use a different strategy in another classroom. It's according to the audience, according to the situation itself, according to the students themselves. So according to situation and subject matter. We teach speaking to make them organize their thoughts in a meaningful and logical sequences. Organizing thoughts. When we speak, we give our thoughts, but organizing the thoughts is very important. We use language as a means of expressing values and judgment. Language is very important. It's the way to communicate with others. So we have to learn how to speak well in order to communicate well. We use the language quickly and confidently. When students learn to speak, they will use the language quickly and confidently, and you have these aims in your mind. You know the aim for teaching speaking. That's why you teach your students this strategy or this skill. But how to teach speaking? You may ask yourself this question. How to teach speaking? Well, we have communicative language teaching, you know. Communicative language teaching, this is a strategy. We have collaborative learning, real life situation, work in pairs and groups. So we teach for these reasons. I will repeat them. Communicative language teaching, we have collaborative learning, and you know collaborative means involving or done by several people or groups of people working together. We have the real life situation, when we put our students in a real life situation. If I want my student to talk about a market, I may bring real objects inside the classroom or pictures and have them speak and talk to each other. We have the pair work and the work in groups, right? Now, teaching speaking skills, we have to put in mind that we have the oral, the written, the receptive, and the productive one. You know that the oral communication, we have the listening and the speaking, oral communication. While the written communication, we have the reading and writing. But what do we receive? We have the listening and the receptive skills are the listening and the reading. They are receptive because you receive the information from other places or other targets. You listen to someone, you listen to any other thing because you receive the information, and we have the reading because you have the text in front of you. So it's a receptive skill. While the speaking and writing are productive skills that you produce. When you speak, you produce your sentences, your words, and when you write the words, the phrases, the sentences, the text, etc. Now to develop oral communication skills, we have problems, right? You know that we have productive speaking and receptive listening. When we listen and we speak. So when we listen, we receive, and when we speak, we produce. So the main problems in which I want to talk about, we have the main problems like this.
In the village feeds Al-Zawi Falls. Interesting information is waiting for you with my friends Subhi and Hala. Just follow us.
Is located in the village of Zawi, which is 12 kilometers to the north of Misyaf.
The village is located on the slope and in the valley, extending from an altitude of 550 meter to 800 meter.
It consists of many high rocky cliffs of different positions.
It was these cliffs that caused the waterfalls. The area is very dense in the amount of trees in it, with stunning views of the high mountains.
Because the region is located in an area with very high rainfall, close to 1,500 millimeters per year,
which led to the presence of huge reservoirs of groundwater. Al-Qutb mountain converges with Al-Quriyat mountain at a nearly right angle, therefore it was called Zawi waterfalls. The area is characterized by the presence of large and small stone caves.
My friends, our visit is over, and that is all for today. We hope you have enjoyed. Thank you, Hala. Thank you, Subhi. Bye.
Welcome back, dear colleagues, dear teachers of English. As you notice when we watched this video, how it's important to teach our students how to speak in English well, in order to talk about their country, in order to talk about their life in general, in order to communicate with each other. And as I said, this skill, the speaking, which is an oral one, it has many problems. Now let's talk about the problem. To develop oral communication skill, we have some problems. So the main problems are the syllables. The syllables requirements. You know, we have requirements relating to the syllables, so we have problem relating to this topic, the language and the speech. The physiological and linguistic characteristic of speech. We have ways of creating the situations. We have prepared and unprepared and inner speech. We have types of exercise. So to talk about the language and speech, the language we have the philological and logical, psychological and linguistic. That's to talk about them. Now what about the psychological characteristics of speech, which is very important to know these things as we teach speaking. Speech must be motivated. Well, when we teach our students how to speak, we have to motivate them. The speech should be motivated in order to attract attention. Speech is always addressed to an interlocutor. Speech is always emotionally colored. Speech is always situational. When we have these things in mind, so we know how to relate, or we know the psychological characteristics of speech. We have linguistic characteristics of dialogue speech. What are they? They are the use of incomplete sentences, ellipses in response. For example, if I ask someone, "Where do you live?" he doesn't respond giving a complete sentence. He said, for example, "in Damascus." So when the answer or the response is short, this is one problem. So they use incomplete sentences. How many books do you have? The answer or the response is 1. The sentence should be, "I have, for example, 1 book." So another thing, the use of contracted forms. You know the contracted forms like doesn't, won't, haven't, and can't. We have the use of some abbreviations. For example, we have lab. Instead of laboratory, we say lab. Bike instead of bicycle. Math instead of mathematics. Fridge instead of refrigerator. Come. So here we have the abbreviations cause problems for the learners of speaking or the language. We have the use of conversational tags. We have also something to talk about, which is the prepared and the unprepared speech. What is it? Speak following the plan. So speak on a subject suggested by a teacher. Sometimes, you, dear colleague, as teachers, you prepare a subject and you need your students to speak about it. Or speak on the text thread, like summarize or give content. Sometimes you have your students listen to something and tell them to summarize what they have listened to or to talk about it. Another thing is to discuss problems touched upon in the text thread or heard. Sometimes to help a foreigner, for example, to find a way in some place. That's it for about when I talk about prepared and unprepared speech. What about the types of classroom speaking performance? If we talk about it, what do we mean by it? Well, in the classroom, we have the imitative, the intensive, okay? And, intensive, you know that it means they're involving in the work. We have the responsive, when they respond. We have transactional and interpersonal. Now let me talk about each type. Here I give you all the types of classroom speaking performance. Now let me talk about each one. Imitative. What's about imitative type? Imitative type, when we keep them short. A few minutes of a class hour only. Few minutes to imitate. Keep them simple. So first of all I said keep them short and then keep them simple. Preferable just one point at a time. Make sure students know why they are doing the drill. So these are important to know when we teach this skill or when we put in mind that we are teaching them the speaking skill. Limit them to phonology and grammar points and make sure they ultimately lead to communicative goals. Don't overuse them. So this is for the imitative type. I hope that it's clear. What about the other type, which is the responsive type? For example, in the responsive type, the teacher may ask his students, "How are you today?" You can ask any time. Your students are supposed to answer. Well, the student may say, "Pretty good, thanks, and you?" The teacher say, "What's the main idea in this essay?" Example, you have given him an essay, you read something. He said, for example, the United Nations should have more authority. Okay? So we have response here when the teacher asks and the student answers. We have transactional. When? What's the main idea in this essay? For example, the student may talk about his country and say that my country or our country is great because it has many important and interesting things or places to visit. You may also ask him other questions related to the places. For example, as we saw in the video that talked about historical places and the beauty of nature. According to his response or the answer of our student, we also ask questions related to the topic. We have the interpersonal type or dialogue. We have a casual register, the colloquial language, emotional charged language, the slang and ellipses, etc. You know them. Now, for teaching two forms of speaking, we have teaching monologue and teaching dialogue. If you want to put in mind that we have two forms, monologue and dialogue. We have three stages if we talk about monologue. We have two stages. Let me talk about them. Three stages in teaching monologue: the statement level. We are proud of. So people, for example, pupil number 1 said, we are proud of our country. Pupil number 2 say, we are proud of our sportsman. For example, pupil number 3 say, we are proud of our school. We have substitution. I have a book. I have a pen. I have a ruler. We have the extension. I have interesting book. I have an interesting book at home. So we have the transformation. He has a book. He has no book. We have the completion. If I have time, I will do something, to complete. So all of these are stages in teaching monologue. For example, give it a name, or write with, or it's a pen, or say the opposite of something. He likes to play, but someone doesn't like. I don't like to play. So let's move to utterance level. Well, here when we have the teacher, I'll give you here examples. When we have the teacher and the pupil talking to each other, saying the sentences, the teacher asks, the student responds. Sometimes the student asks the teacher. Sometimes the student asks another student. Here we have a pupil. Teacher asks. She said the sentence. She uttered something. She cut her finger. The pupil may ask, who cut her finger? The class answer, Anne. When did she cut it? Yesterday. What did she cut it with? With a knife. Why did she cut her finger? Because the knife was sharp. Pupil say, yesterday Anne cut her finger. She cut it with a knife, and the knife was sharp. So this is one way. Now we have another level, the discourse level. In this, pupils are asked to speak on a picture or a film. For example, you state a picture or something you may draw on the board and have students speak about it. You may ask what color, you may ask what do you see in this picture, or would you please describe the picture for me, and have responses from them. Sometimes we comment on a text they have read or heard. When we read something or have them listen to something, have them comment on it, on this text or anything they read or heard about. Or just make up a story of their own. When we ask our students to invent a story, or have them complete the story, or let's play in order to speak. Have students start with something, the other complete using another sentence, then the other use the two sentences and provide them with a third sentence, and they have a text spoken. The teacher supplied the pupil with what to speak about. For example, the farmer's treasure, or the king. What's about success? To speak about success. your future job. I would like to travel abroad because something like this. Now, let's move to the other strategy, teaching dialogue. I have mentioned the monologue with all its ways of teaching. Now let's talk about the dialogue. We have conversation between two people, between the student and the teacher, between the teacher, between the student and his friend, or between when the student stands alone facing his friends in the classroom and talking to them, and starting conversation between them. It's always situational and emotionally colored. Dialogue is generally unprepared. You may state a situation inside the classroom, or something you may ask your student about something which happened to him, or I have seen something, or to talk about a place, anything. Now we have 3 stages in teaching dialogue. The first one, the receptive, and we have the production. Production, it may be immediate, or delayed, or modified. The third stage is constructive or creative. So we have 3 stages in teaching the dialogue. The receptive, reproduction, and we have the constructive or creative. Now, if we ask ourselves, what are the main dialogue structures? Let's talk about them. The main dialogue structures, we have, as I said, question and response. Question and response. For example, when did you visit your dentist? The response, I visited my dentist last week, or I give short response, last week, or the student is supposed to answer and give this response, last week. We have a statement, we have a question here. We are going to travel to any place. What kind of transport will you choose? We have statement with statement, okay? Example, I'd like to go to the cinema on Saturday. Well, I advise you to visit the cinema on Monday or Tuesday. We have a question and question. For example, can I help you? How can I get to the hotel? So here we have 4 main dialogue structures. As you see, number 1, question to response. Number 2, statement with question. Number 3, statement with the statement, and we have the question with question. Now, how to organize communicative activities? How to organize communicative activities? Well, we may have picture difference task, group planning task, list sequencing task. For example, we have pyramid discussion or role play, simulation. So to organize our communicative activities, there are many ways. We may have brainstorming. We have story completion. So dear colleagues, I'm just putting these steps for you in order to make it clear. I know that the majority of you are using all of these techniques in their classroom, but we are talking about teaching speaking skill to organize it this way. So how to organize communicative activities? You know, either by picture difference task, a group planning task, list sequence task, pyramid discussion, role play, simulation, and brainstorming and story completion. Now we have suggestion for teachers in teaching speaking. Before talking about our suggestion, dear colleagues, I know that you may have many suggestions to provide us, because it's according to your classroom, it's according to the situation, to your students, to the place you are in which you know it more than we know. But we have general rules to follow. If you follow me, suggestion for teaching in teaching speaking. Provide maximum opportunity to student to speak. So dear teachers, you know that in the classroom there are many things to be done, but we have to allow our students to speak. We don't have to be the center of approach, to lecture all the time, to speak all the time, and tell them to do this and this, write and do it, and have them speak. If you want them to learn English, well, have them speak English. So provide maximum opportunity to students to speak. Try to involve each student in every speaking activity. Sometimes you may find a student who is shy, or he's afraid to speak, or he has something inside himself. Help him, encourage him to speak, put him in the group. Reduce teacher speaking time in class. Indicate positive signs. Don't correct students' pronunciation mistakes very much. You know that students may have mistakes. We as teachers sometimes make mistakes, and it's very wrong. Sometimes our colleagues correct in front of people for us if we have mistake. We are not a native language speaker, but we need to be perfect and to speak well. Well, don't correct in front of his colleagues. Don't correct your student in front of his friends, or correct the pronunciation mistakes. Now involve speaking activities not only in class but also out of class. And I know many teachers, when they meet their students by chance in a street or in a market or in any place, they tell them, please talk to me in English, speak English. So not only inside the classroom, but you may have activities outside the classroom, maybe in the library, in the labs of the school, or when you have any activity outside the classroom, you may encourage your students to use English only. Now circulate around classroom to ensure that students are on the right track. Provide the vocabulary beforehand and diagnose problems. I know that you know the problems relating to your students when they speak, and you, dear teachers, will follow this suggestion in order to overcome all the problems. Now, I come to the conclusion. When we teach, speaking is very important part of language learning. The ability to communicate clearly and efficiently contributes to the success of the learner in school and success later in every phase in life. It makes students more active in the learning process, and at the same time makes their learning more meaningful and fun for them. Well, we talked about the strategies, about speaking, which is very important, and you know how to encourage your students to speak. We encourage them to speak, and we show them the importance of speaking, the importance of communicating with others using English, the importance that when they want to study more, when they want to communicate with others outside their country, they need English, they need to speak English, so that they need to learn how to speak. That's all for today, and thank you very much for following.